It's a fundamental function of character, of personal trustworthiness. Without a foundation of essential trustworthiness, trust is tentative at best. There are no reserves. There's no confidence in basic motive. Communication is guarded, full of posturing and positioning. On the other hand, trustworthiness creates flexibility and emotional reserve in relationships. You might even mess up occasionally, but it doesn't ruin the relationship. You have the reserves to draw on. People will trust your basic intent. They know what you are inside. Interdependence redefines importance. Switching from an independent to an interdependent paradigm creates a whole new way of seeing that powerfully impacts the decisions we make concerning the best use of our time and the results we get. It literally redefines importance. Think back to the time management matrix. As you look through the lens of the interdependent reality, consider these questions. Is it more important to get the job done efficiently, or to take the time to empower an employee or a child to do it, both now and in the future? Which choice will have greater impact on the quality of your time, the time of others, the time of the organization? Is it more important to spend time supervising and controlling others, or to release the tremendous creative potential in others so that they govern themselves? Is it more important to schedule your time to efficiently solve the problems created by lack of communication, or to build the relationships that make effective communication possible? The fourth generation is a people paradigm. More than the efficient mechanical management of things, it's focused on effective, synergistic interaction with people. The difference between the focus on people and things represents one of the deepest underlying differences between the third and fourth generations. In the third generation, the focus is on managing and controlling. It relegates people to the status of things. People finally become efficient even with themselves in organizing, planning, prioritizing, disciplining, and controlling. But the fourth generation paradigm is people first, things second. It's leadership first, management second. It's effectiveness first, efficiency second. It's purpose first, structure second. It's vision first, method second. This people focus creates an entirely different way of seeing and a different approach to life, as shown on the chart opposite. Obviously, the things paradigm is appropriate when we're managing things, but it's inappropriate and ineffective when we try to apply it to people. It's like trying to play tennis with a golf club. The tool isn't suited to the reality. The people paradigm is vital to success in families, organizations, and groups of all kinds. Japanese industrialist Konosuke Matsushita points out that many of the failures and challenges in business in the West are due to this essential paradigm. With your bosses doing the thinking while the workers wield the screwdrivers, you're convinced deep down that it is the right way to run a business, getting the ideas out of the heads of the bosses and into the hands of labor. For us, the core of management is the art of mobilizing and pulling together the intellectual resources of all employees in the service of the firm. We have measured the scope of the technological and economic challenges. We know that the intelligence of a handful of technocrats, however brilliant, is no longer enough to take them up with a real chance of success. Only by drawing on the combined brainpower of all its employees can a firm face up to the turbulence and constraints of today's environment. When we see in terms of the interdependent reality, we quickly recognize the importance of time spent in Quadrant 2 activities such as building relationships, creating shared vision, and clarifying expectations. We also see that much of what we do in traditional time management is efficiently hacking at the leaves instead of effectively working at the interdependent root. True interdependence is transformational. Interdependence in traditional time management is essentially transactional. This kind of transactional interdependence takes place in day-to-day delegation, and it usually involves good human relations principles. It can be done in ways that are efficient and smooth and satisfying to both parties. But it's a low level of interaction. The parties involved are not transformed. They're not altered or changed. Nothing truly synergistic takes place. Nothing new is created. But the fourth generation is different in kind. It moves from transaction to transformation, where the true synergy of interdependence is created in the very nature of the interaction itself. People are altered. They are transformed. They are truly changed. They do not know when they begin the transaction what kind of dynamic is being unleashed inside the communication process. Something new is being created, and neither party is controlling it. Neither could have anticipated or predicted it. It's people interacting in a state of release rather than control. This kind of transformational interdependence is a whole new world, and is the very essence and core of the fourth generation. In transformational interaction, the third generation approach of control, efficiency, independent achievement, and chronos is eclipsed by this fourth generation concept of synergy around a balanced set of natural laws or principles that are operating and ultimately controlling. The whole idea of synergy is thrilling and exciting, but at the same time, scary. When you go into synergistic communication, you're really not sure how it will end up. And if you've been deeply scripted and trained in independence and in the third generation philosophy of control and efficiency, you may feel very vulnerable and inexperienced, doubting and fearful. I remember the first time I went rappelling on a survival program. I was an assistant instructor, dealing not so much with the survival skills, but with the human interaction. But I had to go through what the students were going through in learning these survival skills. I'll never forget standing on the top of a cliff, knowing that it was my turn to literally fall backward over the sheer precipice. I had seen the other instructors do it just before me. I was intellectually convinced that all the safety elements were present, and that even if I blacked out, there would be a safety rope to catch me. But all this did not give me peace. I still felt anxious and fearful and vulnerable. I didn't want to say anything because I knew it would stir up a reaction in the students. But I'll never forget the feeling that went through my heart and mind as I actually fell backward into space. These feelings are akin to what this whole idea of the synergy of interdependence is all about. You're truly vulnerable. You're letting go. You're putting your faith in a process and in principles. You do not know what will result. You are truly at risk. Control is such an illusion. People who are into control have basically internalized sufficient principles or natural laws of life so that they think they are the ones making things happen. But it's really their obedience to those natural laws and principles that makes things happen. This may work at a fairly low level of contribution and in transactional partnership networking and interdependencies. But when you want to have an enlarged contribution and to get into transformational interdependency that's truly synergistic and creative and becomes a force in its own right, then you leave the safe haven of superior control and become vulnerable. You have to exercise faith in these principles at a higher level, and you're not sure what's going to happen. Life then becomes a real adventure. You're not sure what's around the next bend. You're not sure how the other person will respond. You're at risk. This is why it takes such courage. You have to go way outside your present comfort zone, way outside your past experience or your present mentors. There may be quite a few models out there that inspire you, that have done it before and encourage you on, but you still have to take that first step. You still have to let go and fall backward. The 4 endowments in interdependence. The reason we can do it and can create that synergistic whole that's far greater than the sum of its parts is because of our unique human endowments. In the interdependent reality, we're dealing with the space between stimulus and response in others as well as ourselves. As we do, we find that we can use our unique human endowments to interact with others with integrity in an integrated way. Self-awareness empowers us to have other awareness. Because we know how to listen to our own heart, we can listen to the hearts of others. We can step out of our autobiography and seek to understand. We can stop seeing people as a reflection of ourselves, looking at everything they do in terms of how it affects our time and our world. We can stop seeing them merely as resources to get done what we want to get done. We can progress beyond the narcissistic stage, value the difference, be willing to be influenced. Because we have a changeless core, we can be willing to be changed. We can have humility, respect for others. We can see their weaknesses as opportunities to help, to love, to make a difference. Because we understand conscience, we can know what it is to be part of the collective conscience. We value working together to discover true north, having the humility to realize that our own understanding may be limited by our scripting, and that others may have insight and experience we don't. We find deep satisfaction in creating shared vision and values that empower us to achieve first things together. Through our independent will, we can work to achieve interdependent will. We can agree to work together in win-win ways to accomplish worthwhile purposes. We can create structures and systems that support interdependent effort. As truly independent individuals, we can come together to accomplish common purposes that benefit the family, the group, the organization, and society as a whole. We can contribute our own creative imagination to the incredible process of creative synergy. We can help unleash the tremendous creative potential in others and be open and ready to be surprised by the synergistic results. We can create third alternative solutions that are far more creative, more appropriate, more workable, more rewarding than any solution we could ever come up with on our own. Our input can become part of a kaleidoscope that creates dramatic new results as we interact with others in the problem-solving process. These interdependent endowments empower us to create rich relationships, to be a friend, to give honest feedback, to communicate in authentic ways. Instead of dependence, codependence, or counterdependence, we can exercise effective synergistic interdependence. We can work effectively together to accomplish common goals. We can create powerful teams that build on the strengths of each individual and make weaknesses irrelevant. We can do first things first together in powerful and effective ways. This is the ultimate fulcrum. It empowers us to take time, energy, and human creativity that's typically wasted in unnecessary Quadrant 1 crises and unimportant Quadrant 3 activities, and combine it in ways that create whole new dimensions of effectiveness. In the following chapter, we'll look at 2 high-leverage Quadrant 2 activities through which we can use our combined endowments in ways that are truly transformational. First things first together. Difference is the beginning of synergy. Suppose one of us were to challenge you to an arm wrestle. The objective is to win as much as you can. The time limit is 60 seconds, and we have an observer who has agreed to give the winner a dime whenever one of us gets the other one down. We're poised and ready for action. Now suppose, for the sake of the example, that we immediately get you down. But instead of keeping you there, we immediately release the pressure and let you get us down. We quickly respond and go for another down. Out of habit, you resist. You want to win. Your muscles are strained. Your brows are furrowed in concentration. But in the midst of the struggle, it suddenly occurs to you that each of us now has a dime. If you were to give us another win, and we gave you another win, and you gave us another win, we'd both end up winning a whole lot more. So we work together, going back and forth quickly, and in 60 seconds we each make $3 instead of one of us settling for 10 cents. This is the essence of win-win. In almost all situations, cooperation is far more productive than competition. The lesson isn't that we take turns losing. You're on top 1 minute, we're on top the next. It's that between us is the ability to work together to achieve far more than either of us could on our own. When we do this little exercise in group situations, we often hear comments such as these. As I started out thinking this was an adversarial thing, but then I began to figure out that if we had give and take on both sides, we'd both be winners. There's some symbolic value of prevailing and staying in the upper position. That meant more to me at the moment until I figured out, wait a minute, we're both losing here. My ego was invested in this. Everyone was watching. I felt I had to win. I had to get you down. What I finally realized was that I was fighting myself. Most of us approach situations with the win-lose mentality. Winning means somebody else loses. We're scripted with a scarcity mentality by win-lose athletics, academic distribution curves, and forced ranking systems. We look at life through the glasses of win-lose, and if we fail to develop self-awareness, we spend our lives competing for dimes instead of cooperating for dollars. So who's winning in your marriage? You or your spouse? Who's winning when your kids take you on, testing their identity? Who's winning on your work team when you have people competing against each other for the recognition, the trip to Hawaii, the cash bonus? What's the cost of this win-lose mentality in terms of time and quality of life? Contrary to most of our scripting, to win does not mean somebody else has to lose. It means we accomplish our objectives. And so many more objectives can be accomplished when we cooperate rather than compete. In the interdependent reality, win-win is the only long-term viable option. It's the essence of the abundance mentality. There's plenty for both of us. Plenty in our combined capacity to create even more for ourselves and everyone else. In some respects, it's really what some refer to as win-win-win. By working together, learning from each other, helping each other grow, everyone benefits, including society as a whole. In the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, we introduced a simple 3-step principle-based process to create win-win. Think win-win, based on principles of see, do, get, mutual benefit and cooperation. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, based on principles of respect, humility, and authenticity. Synergize, based on principles of valuing the difference and searching for third alternatives. Let's look at this 3-step process more closely in terms of what it is, how we can apply it, and the impact it has on our time and the quality of our lives. Think win-win. Like Quadrant 2, win-win is primarily a way of thinking. It's a fundamental paradigm based on what is probably the most often mentioned theme in all wisdom literature, the principle of mutual benefit, or reciprocity, often referred to as the golden rule. As we learn to think win-win, we seek for mutual benefit in all our interactions. We start thinking in terms of other people, of society as a whole. It profoundly affects what we see as important, how we spend our time, our response in the moment of choice, and the results we get in our lives. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. For many of us, communication is first and foremost seeking to be understood, to communicate our ideas and opinions to others in an effective way. If we listen at all, it's usually with intent to reply. When we're convinced we're right, we don't really want other people's opinions. We want submission. We want obedience to our opinions. We want to clone other people in our image. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. But the humility of principles removes this kind of arrogance. We become less concerned about who is right and more concerned about what is right. We value other people. We recognize that their conscience, too, is a repository of correct principles. We realize that their creative imagination is a rich source of ideas. We appreciate the fact that through their self-awareness and independent will, they may have gained insight and experience we don't have. So when they see things differently, we seek first to understand. Before we speak, we listen. We leave our own autobiography and invest deeply in genuinely understanding their point of view. We look at our differences as though we stand on opposite sides of the same huge lens. From one side, it's concave, from the other, it's convex. Both perspectives have value, but the only way to really understand the other perspective is to go and stand where the other person is standing, to see as that person sees. As Gandhi said, 3/4 of the miseries and misunderstandings in the world will disappear if we step into the shoes of our adversaries and understand their standpoint. As we really understand the other point of view, we often find our own point of view changed through increased understanding. In the words of Martin Buber, only men who are capable of truly saying thou, an attitude of deep respect, to one another can truly say we with one another. Real listening shows respect. It creates trust. As we listen, we not only gain understanding, we also create the environment to be understood. And when both people understand both perspectives, instead of being on opposite sides of the table looking across at each other, we find ourselves on the same side looking at solutions together. Synergize. Synergy is the fruit of thinking win-win and seeking first to understand. It's the combined power of synergistic creative imagination, the almost magical math where 1 + 1 = 3 or more. It's not compromise. It's not 1 + 1 = 114. It's the creation of third alternatives that are genuinely better than solutions individuals could ever come up with on their own. Let's look now at specific ways we can apply this win-win process in families, groups, and organizations to create positive quality of life results. Just as we did in the personal section of this book, we'll look at vision, roles, and goals. But this time, we'll do it on an interdependent basis. We'll look at shared vision and synergistic roles and goals. We'll also look at the empowered culture they create. Creating win-win stewardship agreements. The stewardship agreement is a marked departure from traditional delegation, which often degenerates into dumping tasks on others. The stewardship agreement creates a synergistic partnership to accomplish first things first together. Delegation becomes stewardship delegation. Instead of feeling dumped on, people are involved. They're motivated. Both parties are accomplishing things of shared importance. So how do we create these agreements? Think win-win. Seek first to understand. Synergize. As you sit down with a boss, a direct report, a coworker, a child, go through the process and come to agreement on each of the 5 elements of win-win stewardship agreement. 1. Specify desired results. Desired results are the shared vision of the stewardship agreement. This is the statement of what's important and is the key factor in putting first things first in every interdependent relationship. This is the test of the abundance mentality, the process of constantly going for third alternative solutions and synergy. Many of the same elements that create empowering organizational mission statements are helpful in creating effective statements of desired results, such as focusing on contribution, addressing all 4 needs, and understanding what constitutes a win for all stakeholders. It's also important to specify what will be done to enhance the ability to produce desired results in the future, to nourish PC or production capability. And it's vital to make sure that the desired results are results, not methods. Whenever we supervise methods, we become responsible for results. The statement of desired results is essentially where family, group, or organizational alignment takes place, where the goals and strategies of each stewardship are aligned with the overall mission and with the efforts of other people or teams in the organization. This creates a process of co-missioning, the co-mingling of the missions of the individual and the organization. 2. Set guidelines. In addition to policies and procedures that may influence the carrying out of the agreement, it's important to identify other guidelines such as true north principles that will be used to produce the results, organizational principles, operating principles, not necessarily natural laws that underlie policies, watch-outs and known failure paths, things not to do, and levels of initiative. A clear understanding of guidelines avoids many major problems. Consider levels of initiative, for example. A waiter who's given the initiative to comp a meal to a dissatisfied customer at one restaurant could be fired at another restaurant for the same action. An agreed-upon level of initiative eliminates the problem. Adapted from William Onken's work are the following 6 levels of initiative. 1. Wait until told. 2. Ask. 3. Recommend. 4. Act and report immediately. 5. Act and report periodically. 6. Act on own. An agreement might contain different levels of initiative for different functions. A secretary could be at level 3 in handling correspondence or responding to staff problems, and level 5 in dealing with visitors and incoming calls. Levels of initiative can change as capability and trust increase. A 3-year-old child who waits until he's told to clean his room will hopefully progress to level 5 by the time he's 10 or 12. The important thing is to match the level of initiative with the capacity of the individual. 3. Identify available resources. This area deals with the financial, human, technical, and organizational resources, such as training or information systems, available in carrying out the agreement. It's important to identify not only the resources available, but also how to access them, how to work with others who use the same resources, and what the limits are. One of the most overlooked resources, and one that's unique to win-win stewardship agreements, is the participants themselves, particularly those who have leadership, management, or supervisory roles. Because of the nature of the stewardship agreements, the leader can become a leader servant to the individual. We'll examine this idea more in depth in Chapter 13. 4. Define accountability. Accountability deals with how we can tell how we're doing. It creates integrity around the agreement. Here, the details of communication are spelled out, as well as how the results will be measured. Accountability includes both P and PC criteria associated with every one of the desired results. The criteria may be measurable, observable, or discernible. Without question, the toughest part of setting up win-win agreements is creating a clear and comprehensive set of desired results, both P and PC, and clear criteria for each of them to be put into the accountability process. In the process of accountability, the individual evaluates himself or herself against the desired results specified in the agreement. Helpful in the evaluation process is 360-degree feedback, which the individual can request from stakeholders. This feedback would be given directly to the individual. We'll also look at feedback in depth in Chapter 13. 5. Determine the consequences. There are 2 kinds of consequences, natural and logical. Natural consequences deal with what naturally happens if we do or do not achieve the desired results. Do we lose market share? Does it impact the bottom line? How are other people affected? What happens when the family chores don't get done? What happens when they do? It's important to identify both negative and positive consequences. Logical consequences could include such things as compensation, opportunities for advancement, additional opportunities for training and development, enlarged or diminished stewardships, or discipline. Both logical and natural consequences must be dealt with, and both have their place. Sometimes parents must knowingly choose to put logical consequences ahead of natural consequences for a child. If the child insists on running out into the street, for example, a parent would probably let the child experience the logical consequence of not having permission to go outside, rather than the natural consequence that might result. We address each of these 5 issues of the win-win stewardship agreement, either in Quality Quadrant 2 leadership time up front, or in Quadrant 1 crisis management time down the road. Our choice significantly impacts the quantity of time we spend on these issues and the resulting quality of all our time. As one woman said, "I love win-win. I came out of a marriage where I never knew what was expected of me and constantly felt like I was failing because I was always trying to meet expectations I didn't understand. It's wonderful to be able to talk to somebody and say, 'This is what you expect from me, this is what I expect from you. Let's meet in the middle and do it.'" Frustration is essentially a function of expectation. Clarifying interdependent expectations up front does a great deal to contribute to quality of life. But what if we don't agree? Chances are good you'll often see things differently when you begin to create stewardship agreements. That's great! Difference is the beginning of synergy. By going through the process, you talk about it. You get the issues out on the table before they cause problems. You seek for creative third alternative solutions. You don't tiptoe around the issues and live with the negative consequences of unresolved issues and unexpressed feelings. Instead, you use your human endowments to address and synergistically resolve the difference. Think win-win. You genuinely want the other person to win. You also want to win. You commit to interact until you can come up with a solution you both feel good about. Seek first to understand. As you seek mutual understanding, you may find it helpful to address the following questions. What is the problem from the other point of view? Really listen with intent to understand, not to reply. Step out of your own autobiography. Work at it until you can express the other person's point of view better than he or she can. Then encourage the other person to do the same. What are the key issues, not viewpoints, involved? Once the viewpoints are expressed and both parties feel thoroughly understood, look at the problem together and identify the issues that need to be resolved. What results would constitute a fully acceptable solution? Find out what would constitute a win for the other person. Identify what would constitute a win for you. Put both criteria on the table as the foundation for synergistic interaction. Synergize. Open the door to the discovery of creative third alternative solutions. Brainstorm. Use your MacGyver mentality. Open your mind. Be prepared for surprise. Try to create a list of possible options that would meet the criteria you've set up. Let's look at two examples of how this process might work. Example number 1. Suppose you're a sales representative for your company. It's a tough market, and there are several competing vendors in your area. Most of your clients operate on just-in-time delivery, and your ability to meet committed delivery dates is essential to keeping business. But lately, your manufacturing facility has been shipping things out at the last minute. You've had a couple of late deliveries to some key clients. You understand their situation and know that they'll move to another vendor if your company continues to be unreliable. You don't want to lose any accounts, so you go to the production facilities manager to find out what's going on. When you get there, you find this manager is buried alive in quadrant 1. Feeling beat up by the demands that you and everybody else in marketing are placing on his plant. He says it's a miracle that you get the deliveries at all. What do? Think win-win. You want to win. You want this manager to win. You want your clients to win. You're not thinking either or, but and. You're looking for third alternative solutions that will meet everyone's needs. You're looking for solutions to chronic problems instead of symptoms. Seek first to understand. 1. What is the problem from the other point of view? As you listen to this manager, you find that in the past 6 months, demand has increased by 30% and no funding has been approved to add capacity. Current shifts have stayed on overtime and maintenance has been ignored, increasing labor costs and downtime and significantly straining this manager's relationship with headquarters. He feels he's getting pressure from all sides and that the delivery times you request are unrealistic. You also sense that this manager wants to do a good job. He's not trying to hold things up. He wants to deliver on time just as much as you do. He simply feels that he's up against a wall and there's no end in sight. After thoroughly exploring his situation, you share your client's situation and your own concerns. With all the viewpoints out on the table, you're ready to work together to identify issues and find solutions. 2. What are the key issues? As you communicate openly, you recognize that this problem is a symptom of a much larger series of problems.